Flights are $1 and $200 each, my mom said. If you cannot afford it, stay behind. I nodded, then the keys slipped out of my hand, scattering across the floor of my apartment hallway. I dropped to my knees, pretending I was just too tired to stand, pretending I hadn't heard the same tone, the same blade wrapped in velvet years ago. Back when I was 23, she told me not to show up at Heather's engagement party if I didn't have something appropriate to wear. I remember staring at the lone blue dress in my closet, debating whether silence was better than embarrassment. That day, I chose silence. I didn't go. No one noticed. Tonight, the wind bit through my scrubs as I trudged home from a 12-hour shift. It was late October in Chicago, the kind of night that smelled like snow, but didn't deliver it. I hadn't even taken my shoes off when her name flashed across my phone. Patricia Mitchell. She skipped pleasantries, skipped questions like, "How are you?" or "Are you eating enough?" Instead, she announced the news as if I were a distant tenant being informed of a building inspection. "We're going to Hawaii. The trip is already booked. Your father's idea." You know how he gets when Heather's stressed. I didn't ask why I hadn't been consulted. I already knew the answer. Heather was stressed from managing her legal firm, and her two toddlers' duties my mother turned into small sainthoods. Kyle, still finishing business school, deserved a break. I had earned overtime and another day of silence. "I can't afford a $1 or $200 flight," I muttered. "Well, then you shouldn't come," she replied. Not unkindly. "No need to stretch yourself for a family vacation." I bit the inside of my cheek. That word, family, how casually it was wielded, how selectively it applied. After the call, I leaned against the kitchen counter, the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound grounding me. I opened the window for air and stared at the skyline. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Not really. Just empty. Then my phone buzzed again. A fraud alert from Chase. Unusual activity detected. 4 airline tickets purchased $40, $800. My chest tightened. I opened the app. Same airline mom mentioned. Same date. Same destination. I tapped the reservation number, hands shaking. 4 business class tickets, all first names neatly displayed. Patricia Mitchell, James, Mitchell, Heather, Mitchell, Kyle. Mitchell, there was no Samantha Mitchell. But there was my card. My name in the billing section. I sat down slowly, the floor cold beneath me. My scrubs were still damp from the rain earlier. I double-checked the billing address. Mine. Card ending in 2291. Mine. The betrayal didn't come as a slap. It came like a whisper, one I'd heard so many times that I almost mistook it for a lullaby. With deliberate fingers, I tapped dispute all, then lock card. My thumb hovered for a second. Then click. Done. And yet, there it was. My name still attached. Not on a boarding pass. Just on the bill. The silence in the room turned dense. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared. Then came the final punch. A text. From Heather. "Why is nothing paid for? We're at the airport." I stared at it. Laughed once, dry and bitter. Then typed my reply. "What you said." I stayed behind. I was once in a family portrait. Once. The year was 2001. I was cropped out when the prince came back. The photo had been taken in front of the church after Heather's first piano recital. I was 7, wearing mismatched socks and a crooked smile, standing too far to the side. The printed version framed on the living room wall showed only 4 people, 4 neat faces. Mine was missing, trimmed by someone's careful hand, as if my absence made the picture more pleasing. I woke up still in yesterday's scrubs, the fabric stiff with fatigue. The phone, which I hadn't plugged in, lay dead on the nightstand. I hadn't turned it back on since Heather's message. No missed calls, no follow-ups, just silence. The kind that wraps around you like fog, soft, dense, and suffocating. I brewed coffee but didn't drink it. Sat on the couch with my legs tucked underneath me, holding the mug for warmth. My mind didn't wander, it filed. I began sorting like I would triage in the ER. Triage of grief, of patterns, of debts that weren't called debts. I pulled out my laptop, opened the budgeting app I hadn't touched in months, created a new spreadsheet, named it Expenses Covered Without Consent. The first entry came quickly. 2019, Heather, emergency bridesmaid dress, $600. She said her card was maxed. I remember handing her my debit card in the Macy's dressing room. 2021, Kyle, temporary career change, $2,000. He was quitting his first job, needed help moving cities, promised to pay me back by Christmas. Never did. The numbers accumulated like frost. 2020, family dinner reservation Patricia couldn't cancel, $375. 2018, fixing mom's washing machine since you work right, $720. Each one came back in a voice I couldn't forget. My mother's cool, even rationale. She's raising a family, Sam. Your sister doesn't have the flexibility you do. Heather's chirpy brush-offs. You're good with numbers, just move things around. Kyle's late-night apologies that sounded more like jokes. Venmo's being weird. I'll get it to you soon. By mid-morning, I had listed 23 entries. 23 quiet sacrifices. The spreadsheet total blinked back at me, $7,894.72. I leaned back, breathing slowly, eyes dry. I wasn't angry. That would have made it personal. This wasn't personal. It was procedural. Like auditing a department. Like tracking symptoms. I moved to the next tab, credit statements. Downloaded the last 2 years. Cross-referenced any unknown charges. 3 ride-share payments to and from Heather's house. She'd called me in a panic one night, saying one of the twins had a fever. I took the ride, sat with her, brought Pedialyte. She never mentioned it again. I highlighted the rows in red. I was halfway through reconciling grocery charges when the email came in. Subject: American Express. Scheduled payment failed. Body: we attempted to process your scheduled payment of $1.50. The payment failed. A late fee of $39 has been added to your account. I hadn't scheduled a payment. I hadn't bought anything. I blinked, reread it, then clicked View Account. The screen took a moment to load, and there it was, another ghost transaction. A charge I hadn't authorized, a bill I hadn't touched. The spreadsheet was still open behind the browser window, the title glowing at the top. Expenses Covered Without Consent. It was no longer just a list. It was evidence. Mom always said family isn't a contract. But somehow, everything with them feels legally binding, except I never got to sign. I stared at my laptop, that same spreadsheet still open like a scar that wouldn't heal. Somewhere between row 28 and 30, I added a new column. Labeled it with 3 words that felt far too simple for what they meant: with consent. I didn't need to fill it in. The answer for every line was obvious. Later that evening, after a lukewarm microwave dinner I barely touched, I pulled out my tax folder from the hallway cabinet. I didn't know what exactly I was looking for, just that something didn't sit right. Back in 2022, Kyle had asked me to co-sign a private loan. It was for something vague, a coding boot camp or a short-term business course. I'd said no, not because I didn't care, but because I finally couldn't afford to. I remembered that conversation in detail. You have better credit, he said. I also have no cushion, I replied. Come on, Sam. You're not even married. What are you saving for? I thought that was the end of it. But tonight, scrolling through old emails, I found something I had never seen or never noticed. Subject line: loan approved. Welcome to Green Rock Lending, dated December 3rd, 2022. I clicked on it. My stomach dropped. The body of the email read, "Congratulations, Samantha Mitchell. Your loan application has been accepted." No, I never submitted one. I double-checked the sender, legit. Checked the recipient, me. Opened the attached confirmation PDF. There at the bottom was a box labeled Digital Signature of Applicant. It had my full name, in a font I would never use. I blinked and sat back. Cold swept through my chest. He'd done it. Kyle had copied my information, maybe from an old joint file, maybe from a shared family folder. But he'd applied anyway, faked the signature. And now the debt, however hidden, was real. I opened my downloads folder, renamed the file Loan Authorization KM 2022 PDF. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. It was something sharper than anger now, something cleaner, like the silence before a controlled demolition. Just then, my phone lit up with a voicemail from Mom. I hesitated before playing it. "Sam," she said, voice smooth, as always. "Kyle's been under a lot of stress. He needed support. You understand, you always have." That was it. No mention of the loan, no apology. Just the assumption that I'd absorb hit one more quiet collapse. I sat still for a while, eyes on the glowing blue screen. Then I opened my investment app. Or tried to. Error session expired. Please log in again. Strange, I hadn't touched it in weeks. I refreshed. A new banner appeared. Suspicious login attempt detected at 8:03 p.m. IP address flagged. A new window popped up. Was this you? I clicked. No. A sinking weight settled in my chest. This wasn't about a one-time breach anymore. Someone with my last name was combing through everything. Nobody ever apologized. They just said, "You're too sensitive," or "Don't make it a big deal." It was always easier to pathologize my reaction than to own their actions. Rain slid quietly down the windows, a gentle rhythm against the silence of my apartment. Sunday afternoons used to mean meal prep, laundry, maybe a phone call to Ashley. Not today. Today, I was archiving. My laptop was plugged in, battery at 100%, fan humming faintly as I worked. I wasn't just collecting anymore. I was curating, categorizing, naming things no one in my family ever dared to name. One tab held my credit card statement. Another, Venmo screenshots, $200 Heather's sitter emergency, $85 Kyle's parking ticket. I created a folder called Family Draws, unauthorized. It already had 15 files. I made subfolders by year. In the budgeting app, I tagged each transaction, emotional framing attached. Verbal manipulation present. Repayment promised, yes, no, laughed off. By hour 3, I had enough to make a forensic accountant blush. At 2:37 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Heather. "I hope you're not still angry. We all struggle, you know. Kyle has anxiety. I have 2 kids. Mom does what she can. You're not the only one with bills, Sam. Family means giving when you can, just like we would for you." No punctuation at the end. Just that tone, that soft knife guilt. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a screenshot and dropped it into a doc titled Emotional Debts, disguised as care. When I looked up again, the rain had stopped. My tea had gone cold. The screen flashed. One new email from ehm@relayprotonmail.com. Subject: "You might want to see this." No message body, just a PDF attachment. I hesitated, hovered my mouse over the file, then clicked. The document opened to a spreadsheet: Green Rock Private Portfolio, KM Holdings. Line 4, benefactor name, Samantha Mitchell. Date of deposit, March 2023. Initial funding amount, $5,000. It took me a full minute to breathe. Kyle had created an investment account, crypto-based, decentralized, and linked it to my name. My ID. Not just the money, my identity. I cross-referenced with my bank account. There it was. March 14th, wire transfer, $5,000, crypto exchange. I'd never authorized it, never even noticed. I scrolled further. Another deposit. June. $250. Same trail. This wasn't carelessness. It was theft dressed up in family shorthand. I closed the tab and opened a new sheet titled Identity Fraud, Internal Network Only. I hadn't planned this far. I hadn't planned anything, but something inside me was crystallizing. Cold quiet. No more fog. No more benefit of the doubt. And then a knock. I froze. 3 short raps deliberate. I stood. Walked to the door slowly. Looked through the peephole. My father, James Mitchell. I hadn't seen him in nearly a year. He wore his old accountant's coat. Same tie from Kyle's graduation. Same expression, neutral, unreadable. Like he was prepping for an audit. I didn't open the door. He leaned in slightly, not yet aware I was watching. Then he said softly but clearly, "We need to talk. About Emily." I used to think silence was peace, a soft place to land, a retreat. But now I know silence costs $7,870, and I've been footing the bill for years. The apartment was quiet again. Dim light spilled from the single lamp by the couch, casting long shadows across my desk. The spreadsheet was complete. Tabs lined the bottom of my screen like scars, each one named with the precision of a surgical report. Heather unpaid, transfers Kyle loans, unauthorized Patricia voice records, Gaslight Index 2016-2023. I hadn't eaten, didn't need to. What I felt now wasn't hunger, it was momentum. I heard the floor creak behind me. Dad was still standing in the hallway. He hadn't knocked again, just waited. Maybe he thought I'd come to my senses. I opened the door. He stepped in slowly, hat in hand. "Sam, look, you don't want to blow things up over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," I repeated, quiet. "I get it, they weren't fair. But this is dramatic." His voice was even, accountant flat, the same tone he used when explaining why we couldn't go to Disneyland in 2003. "You're putting this on record. In writing." "That's the point," I said. He frowned. "It'll divide the family." I looked him straight in the eye. "The family already did that." Silence. Then he nodded. Quietly. "I warned them not to touch your accounts," he said, almost too soft to hear. Then louder, "I never saw the transfers. I didn't know about the loan." "I believe you," I said. And I meant it. He stood for another beat. Then left. I locked the door behind him and turned back to my laptop. To Patricia Mitchell, Heather Mitchell, Kyle Mitchell, CC, Clara Jameson, Robert Flint, family lawyer, HR department, Bright Path marketing subject, outstanding balances, formal notification. I typed for 2 hours. Not a rant, not a plea, just numbers, dates, amounts, screenshots embedded, citations linked, 2 pages total like a business memo. I attached a PDF titled "Samantha Mitchell Locked Family Liabilities, Notice 01, PDF, and then I hit send. At 12:14 a.m. my phone rang. Voicemail. "Patricia. Of course. How dare you do this to your own blood? You think sending this to Aunt Clara will fix anything? This is private family business, Samantha. You're making a spectacle. You've always needed attention. Well, congratulations. Delete." No hesitation. 12 minutes later, a reply from Heather popped up. She'd hit reply all. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We all have burdens. It's not like we stole anything. You were there when Kyle was struggling. When I needed help with the kids. You're not a victim, you're just bitter." I took a screenshot and labeled it, "Minimization Attempt, Heather, 2023. I didn't reply. But I did open a new note. At 1:07 a.m. a text arrived from Emily. "Ready to share the rest when you are." I stared at the message. A single sentence, but it cracked something open. I wasn't alone in this. Not entirely. The lamp flickered slightly as the building heater kicked in. I saved my files, backed them up to 2 separate drives. Then I shut the laptop. Act 1 was over. They had heard me, and they were afraid. They never paid back the money, but now they're about to pay interest, and not just financial. I sat in the break room alone, my coffee cold and untouched. The vending machine hummed, the only sound in the sterile silence. Monday mornings were usually cruel, but today had a different edge. My phone buzzed. It was Mr. Hill from HR. "Just a heads up," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Your credit report flagged something unusual. Might be worth checking out." I forced a smile. "Thanks. I'll look into it." I already knew what I'd find. Back at my desk, I logged into the credit monitoring app. A line of red numbers glared back at me, $80,000. Business loan. Open last year. Co-owner Samantha Mitchell. My breath went shallow. I clicked into the details. The LLC name was vaguely familiar, KM Consulting Group. Of course. Kyle Mitchell. Clever enough to mask it in initials, but not clever enough to cover his tracks. I didn't remember signing anything, but I remembered the day Kyle crashed on my couch claiming he'd figure things out after quitting his finance internship. That was 18 months ago. He left 3 days later with half a box of takeout, and my spare key never returned it. The next notification came like clockwork. Emily's email. Subject: Re-family misuse attached IRS form. Kex K Pa TDF. He listed you as co-founder. Claimed it made him more fundable. I stared at the PDF. My name was typed in neat Arial font just below his, followed by my social security number. I hadn't just been used, I had been institutionalized into his failure. I picked up the phone and called the legal aid office. 10 minutes later, I had an appointment. By lunch, I was walking into a notary office with trembling hands and a USB drive. "I need this affidavit notarized," I said, sliding the printed document across the desk. The notary, a young woman with tired eyes, read it quickly. "Victim of identity misuse." "You sure about this?" "Absolutely." She stamped the page. The sound was final, like a gavel. Back home, I found another message from Emily. This time, audio. "Patricia told Kyle to use your info. Said it's family. She won't make noise." I recorded it. I played the file. My mother's voice smooth and controlled. "She owes Kyle. She's had free rent in our heads for years. It's time she gave back. And anyway, she won't cause a scene. Samantha never does." She sounded so confident, so sure that I'd stay quiet, that I'd keep paying emotionally, financially, existentially. I listened twice. The second time, I didn't feel rage. I felt calculation. I forwarded the audio to my lawyer. Then I opened a new tab and began researching whistleblower protections. The silence they counted on is gone. Emily's follow-up landed seconds later. "Patricia knew. I have the phone recording, and I knew this wasn't just a family squabble anymore. This was the beginning of a case. When people write wills, they show who matters most and who doesn't." Aunt Clara lived in a craftsman-style home tucked behind 2 stubborn oaks, the kind of place that smelled like lemon oil and history. She met me at the door with a porcelain smile and a teacup already steaming. I hadn't been here in years, not since Grandpa's funeral, where I'd stood near the back, unacknowledged and unthanked. "Come in, sweetheart," she said. "I've been meaning to call." I didn't ask why she hadn't. I already knew. The sitting room was filled with old things that once felt regal: lace doilies, hand-painted china, a grandfather clock that still ticked as if it held time hostage. "I kept this," Clara said, reaching for a small floral box on the sideboard. "He wrote it for you. But I wasn't supposed to give it to you." She handed me a sealed envelope. My name, Samantha, in my grandfather's angular script was the only thing on the front. My hands trembled as I opened it. "My dearest Sam, I know we haven't spoken much. That's my regret, not yours. Your mother said you were always too busy to visit. But I wanted you to have something. Your grandmother's locket. And my library chair. I'm adding you to the will. Clara has a copy. Love, Granddad." October 3rd, 2017. The date caught in my throat. He died 10 days later. "Patricia never gave this to you?" I asked. Clara shook her head. She insisted he was confused, not thinking clearly. A week before he passed, she brought in a lawyer. I didn't see the papers, just the signatures. I stared at the letter again as if ink could reverse time. She said I was too young to understand estate matters, I said almost to myself. She said you'd cause drama, Clara added softly. It didn't even surprise me. Clara reached for another folder from the box. Inside was a copy of the final will dated October 10th. My name was nowhere. Heather and Kyle received full asset rights, and Patricia was listed as executor. I wasn't just overlooked, I was erased. Then I saw it, a margin note, faint pencil marks on the corner of a page. Where's Sam's copy? His handwriting again. Slanted and unsure, but still his. My breath caught. He knew, I whispered. Clara looked away. I didn't want to get in the middle. Your mom. She can be forceful. I folded the documents back into the envelope. Forceful doesn't cover it. The silence hung for a beat too long. There's something else, she said. Her fingers tapped nervously on the box. In the attic. But you'll need to see it alone. I looked at her. She couldn't meet my eyes. What is it? Clara stood slowly. I honestly don't know. He told me to keep it safe. Said you'd come looking one day. Outside, wind rattled the shutters like a warning. But I nodded. I'm ready. Because when someone rewrites your legacy, you don't ask for justice. You dig until you find the original draft. Clara hesitates. There's something else in the attic, but you have to see it alone. The attic smelled like dust and forgotten truths. Clara handed me the key like it weighed more than gold. What your mother buried wasn't just paper, she warned. I didn't ask for more. I knew what silence sounded like in this family, and I was done listening to it. The staircase creaked beneath my feet as I climbed. Each step up felt like peeling back another layer of what they'd kept from me. The attic door stuck at first, then gave way with a reluctant groan. Inside, light filtered through a small window landing on stacked boxes, faded rugs, and a single trunk marked Legal 2015. I knelt by the trunk. Cobwebs clung to its brass latches. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it, but not from fear, from restraint. I didn't want to rip it all open and miss anything, not this time. The first file folder was labeled Bank, Joint. Inside, a series of statements from a local credit union listing my name as co-owner on an account I had never seen. One balance from 2016 read $41,350, not mine. I flipped through deposits, withdrawals, and finally a transfer slip. My name scratched out in blue ink replaced with Heather. Another folder labeled Transfer Property, 2017 included a letter addressed to my grandfather. Per our discussion, we will execute the transfer to Heather and Kyle only. Samantha has relocated to Chicago and no longer expressed interest. My hands clenched. Expressed interest I was never asked. Near the bottom of the trunk was a Ziploc bag of old emails printed and bundled. The top one, Patricia, to a man named Gerald. Subject: clean adjustments. I read slowly. Let's keep it simple. Redraft the beneficiary lines. Remove anything that would cause drama. Sam won't push back, she never has. Buried underneath was an envelope with my grandfather's scrawl, SJM, copy retained by Clara. It was sealed but aged and brittle. I opened it gently. Inside was a list of assets and handwritten notes beside each. My name appeared 4 times. My siblings' names appeared 6. But there at the very end, a page torn from a legal pad, give Sam the lake lot. She always loved it. The lake lot. My place. The only place I ever felt peace growing up. And I never knew he wanted me to have it. I turned toward the far end of the attic, a dark corner where a pile of partially charred documents lay in an old metal bin. The edges were blackened, but some pages had survived. I picked up one half-burnt letter, Patricia's handwriting unmistakable. She'll never check Clara's. If it's gone, it's gone. On the same sheet, circled in red, my full name, Samantha Jane Morgan. I didn't sit. I couldn't. I paced that attic, my breath catching between disbelief and fury. There was no miscommunication, no oversight. This was erasure, intentional, precise, and done with a smile. Behind me, I heard Clara's slow steps ascending. When she reached the top, she held out something small in her palm. A USB drive. Black. Labeled in Sharpie, SJM, full, radio.move. I don't know what's on it, Clara said softly, but your mom sure didn't want me to keep it. She pressed it into my hand. I kept it anyway. I looked down at it, then back at Clara. Do you want me to watch it now? She shook her head. No. I think you should do it when you're ready. But soon, because whatever's on there, it scared her. That night, I drove home with the drive in my pocket. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just stared at the little black stick on my desk, daring it to speak. And I knew deep down, once I plugged it in, there would be no coming back. I've always been quiet. That was their mistake. They mistook silence for ignorance. The blue light of my laptop glowed against the wall as I sat cross-legged on my couch. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, I scrolled through a directory of legal professionals like I was flipping through old yearbooks, every name a potential turning point. I reread the email from Emily Victor Tran. Trustworthy, discreet, specializes in financial fraud. I clicked the link and filled out the intake form without hesitation. While I waited for the call, I drafted an email. Just one line addressed to the entire family. Subject: documentation. I trust everything's well documented on your end. We'll talk soon. No accusation, no context. Just a calm detonation. I didn't expect a quick reaction, but the family proved more predictable than I'd imagined. Kyle responded within an hour. Hey Sam, just checking in. Everything okay? Need to talk. Heather's reply was longer, draped in passive-aggressive sweetness. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I truly hope you're not digging up drama for no reason. We've all had a lot going on. Patricia said nothing. Not a word. Not even a voicemail. Victor called the next afternoon. His voice was steady, clipped, almost bored. I've gone through the preliminary documents you uploaded, he said. There's enough here for civil action. Possibly more. I exhaled. It didn't feel like relief. It felt like confirmation. He continued. The paper trail is solid, but if you want to make this public, we'll need to control the narrative. I'd advise not revealing your hand yet. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Understood. I'm not here to make noise. I'm here to finish a job. That night, I sat with the USB Clara had handed me. I hadn't opened the file yet. SJM, full redo move. That was the name etched on the side. I plugged it into my laptop and hesitated. Not because I was scared of what I'd find. I was scared of how angry I wouldn't feel anymore. What happens when the rage has structure? When it becomes evidence, I clicked play. A grainy video came to life. Patricia stood in the dining room talking on the phone, unaware the camera was rolling. The audio was distorted, but the words were unmistakable. She's always been sensitive and, frankly, not very useful. If we act now, she won't even notice. Then silence. Then make sure only Heather and Kyle are listed. Sam's not involved. She doesn't even come home for holidays. I paused the video. My breath stayed even. No tears, just data. A message from Emily popped up. Emily, do you want the video published or private? I stared at the blinking cursor. That was the thing about quiet people, they take their time. But when they move, they don't stop halfway. A single video clip can do what years of explanations never could: silence a room. I sat still, the lights dimmed my laptop screen, glowing faint blue against the shadowed walls of my apartment. The USB Clara handed me 2 days ago had been untouched until this moment. I hadn't flinched when she gave it to me. I wouldn't flinch now. I created a folder on my desktop titled Mitchell Fall Phase 1, dragged the contents in, and clicked open. The file name, sjmfullradio.move. It ran exactly 13 minutes. The opening frame was grainy. Clara's kitchen table, time-stamped 2019. Patricia sat at the head looking too comfortable. Heather was to her right, Kyle on her left. I was nowhere in the room, not even mentioned yet. The first few minutes were logistics, property, financials, probate. Then the tone shifted. Patricia leaned forward. We need to be honest about Samantha. She's not equipped for this. She's unstable. She chose her path. Heather nodded slowly. We all have families now. Real ones. We can't let her ruin everything because she's bitter. Kyle laughed. She's basically staff at this point. She sends money, keeps quiet. What else do we need from her? Patricia didn't laugh. She said with that calm, measured voice she always used when closing a wound she herself had inflicted. Then let's move on. Quietly. Make sure the accounts are clean. And for God's sake, don't loop her in. At minute 7, the screen flickered. Someone, maybe. Clara shifted the camera's angle slightly. Patricia picked up a framed photo of me in my graduation gown, the one she'd taken at Northwestern. She stared at it, smiled lightly. Well, she got her degree, she said, voice soft. Now let's move on. I paused the video there. My face was expressionless. There were no tears, no dramatic gasp. I knew most of it already, just not in surround sound. I clipped 3 segments from the video, the part where they discuss my instability, the financial implications, and Patricia's closing remark. Each clip was dated, titled, and uploaded to a hidden cloud folder. I copied the link to family.lawerslegal.com, james.mitchellyeetemail.com, clara.mitchell62@yahoo.com. Hey, our bright path. Co-subject FYI, timeline materials body. This folder will remain accessible for 48 hours. Let me know who'd like full download rights. Regards. Samantha. I pressed send. My hands didn't shake. Emily pinged me 5 minutes later. Holy hell, she wrote. Do you want this to stay internal or go wide? I stared at her message. I hadn't made that decision yet. But the quiet inside me, the one they mistook for ignorance, was gone. I wasn't looking for an apology anymore. I was past that. This wasn't about making noise. It was about making record. Sometimes to move forward, you must first burn what's behind you, even if it wore your mother's face. I pulled into the driveway without announcing myself. No warning, no text. The wind outside carried that strange late autumn stillness where every gust feels like it's pulling something out of the past. I stepped out, tablet in hand, already loaded with the video. I wasn't shaking. Patricia opened the door with that hollow smile she reserved for holidays and obligations. She wore her beige cardigan, the one with the gold buttons. The smell of boiled chicken hung in the air. This is a surprise, she said, voice clipped. You could have called. I stepped inside without waiting for permission. I figured we were past courtesies. The kitchen hadn't changed. Same dusty floral curtains, same dish towel draped perfectly over the oven handle. She followed behind me, closing the door quietly, as if any part of this could still be kept private. I assume you've been talking to Emily? She said, her back straight, arms folded across her chest. I placed the tablet on the counter. I have. But this is from you. I hit play. Patricia, sitting on that brown leather couch, perfectly lit and perfectly poised, filled the screen. Her voice too smooth to be spontaneous, Samantha's too unstable for this. She chose her path. Heather's soft nod. Kyle's laugh. She's basically staff at this point. Patricia's expression didn't flicker. Not once. I see Emily gave you everything she said when the clip ended. Not everything, I replied. Just enough to know where I stand. You stand where you've always stood, she snapped. Outside. Because you put yourself there. I didn't answer. Instead, I reached into my coat and placed a thick manila envelope on the table. What's that? Legal documents, affidavits, a civil complaint drafted and ready. You're not just my mother anymore, you're a respondent. She scoffed. You can't be serious. I looked her in the eye. I've never been more serious. Her voice raised slightly brittle. This family has done more for you than you ever asked for. I cut in. Or deserved. You kept using that word family, like it came with immunity. Patricia's jaw clenched. She reached out suddenly fast and sharp, trying to knock the tablet from the counter. It didn't fall. I didn't flinch. You should have stayed quiet, she hissed. I did, I said. For 30 years. We stood in silence for a moment. No dishes clinking, no clock ticking. Just two women separated by blood and betrayal. Her voice softened then, like poisoned honey. You're not strong enough for this, Samantha. If you take us down, you go with us. I turned away, hand on the doorframe. Maybe, I said. But at least I'll go down knowing I didn't help you stay on top. I left her standing there, still wordless, stunned. A woman so used to control she never imagined someone walking away from it. I spent a lifetime wondering if my father ever really saw me. Not as an obligation, not as a name in the margins of a tax form. Just me, his daughter. Turns out he did. And he was afraid of what that meant. His office was still the same tidy, spare, windowless. A dozen file boxes lined one wall, all marked with Sharpie scrawls and faded year tags. I stood in the doorway until he looked up from his desk, startled for a moment, then resigned. Samantha, he said, straightening. Didn't expect, no one does, I said, stepping inside. He gestured to a chair. I didn't sit. I handed him the printout, Kyle's LLC filing the tax link, and a copy of the affidavit I'd already signed. His eyes flicked down the page. No emotion, just reading. That same cold efficiency I'd watched all my life. But his jaw tightened when he got to the part about my social security number. I need to know, I said. How long you've known? He put the paper down, folded his hands. Your mother handles most of the family filings. That's not what I asked. Silence. Then, since 2021. I saw it when Kyle brought over the documents. I asked him, and he said it was a formality, you were co-signing for a loan. He said you knew. You believed him. He didn't answer. I crossed my arms. And when you saw your daughter's name disappear from the will drafts, when Heather and Kyle's shares increased, what was that? Also your mother? He sighed, rubbed his temple. I didn't want conflict. You got fraud instead. He flinched. A small one, but I saw it. He reached into his bottom drawer and pulled out a red leather ledger. My handwriting was all over the first few pages, notes from the summer I helped him during college break. You used to check the numbers better than my interns, he said quietly. You were good. I didn't respond. He opened to a dog-eared page from 2017. That year, there was a property transfer your grandfather wanted split 3 ways. The initial draft had you on it. After he passed, your mother had a meeting with the lawyer. Said you declined. That's a lie, I figured. But I didn't push. You let it happen. He closed the ledger and pushed it toward me. I can't fix the past, Sam. But I kept that. Just in case. Case of what? That you'd come back angry enough to demand truth. I slid the ledger into my bag. I could feel the weight of it, not just paper, but time. Erased years finally scratching their way back into the record. I'm not here for revenge, I said. He looked up. I'm here for reality. They buried it. I'm digging it up. He didn't nod. Didn't argue. Just looked. Older. More tired than I'd ever seen him. I'm not like her, he murmured. But I wasn't strong enough to stop her. I stood. Weakness is a choice when silence protects the powerful. His secretary, a young woman named Maria, barely out of school, walked by the door, offering a gentle smile. For a second I wondered if she knew what room she was walking past. A room where quiet men watched daughters disappear from ledgers. As I stepped into the hallway, I heard the rustle of paper behind me. Then his voice. Don't take it all down, Sam. Just take what's yours. I didn't look back. I didn't answer. An hour later, as I crossed the Wabash Bridge, Emily messaged Patricia's phone just lit up. Your dad called her. One line, she's not backing down. No, I wasn't. They planned another family dinner. Of course they didn't invite me. But this time I was already there. Emily sat beside me silent except for the occasional tap of her keyboard. The lights in my apartment were off. Only the glow of the screen illuminated our faces. On it, the Mitchell dining room. Candles, crystal glasses, linen napkins. Heather in a sleeveless navy dress. Kyle already half a glass in. Patricia at the head of the table in pearls. Clara had played her part. A modest gift basket Brie Olive's jam delivered that afternoon. Inside it, the micro camera embedded in the false bottom of the wooden crate. Clara didn't even blink when I handed it to her. She just said, "They're meeting Thursday. Some kind of damage control." The feed was smooth, the audio crisp. Patricia poured herself wine. "Let's not waste time," she began. Samantha's positioning herself as a threat. James muttered something barely audible. Heather leaned forward. "We should have handled this months ago." Kyle waved his fork. "She's not bluffing. She's turned. And she's good. Like dangerously good." "Victor Tran is no amateur," Heather added. I checked. "He's filed civil suits that made CFOs cry." I leaned back, crossing my arms. Emily glanced at me, then resumed taking notes. We weren't smiling. Not yet. Patricia swirled her glass. "So, what are our options, Heather? We propose a settlement. Quiet. Off record. Confidentiality clause. Kyle. Or we stall. File a motion to block her first. Make her spend." Clara stayed quiet, her face unreadable. She buttered her bread slowly like none of this mattered, but her eyes flicked to Patricia. Just once. Then James cleared his throat. "She has the video. I saw her eyes when she left. That wasn't rage. That was certainty." Patricia glared at him. "So we do nothing," Heather replied before anyone else could. "We anticipate. File first. Accuse her of hacking surveillance invasion of privacy. She'll countersue," Kyle said. "And win." I clipped that moment. The timestamp, the phrase. Heather nodding solemnly. Emily flagged it in the shared folder titled Mitchell Fall Shop Public Phase. Then came Patricia's toast. She raised her glass, smiled that practiced smile I'd seen at every family photo shoot, every fundraiser. "To family," she said. "Even when they bite." Emily let out the faintest laugh. I chuckled low and bitter. They still thought this was salvageable. I was about to turn off the stream when my phone buzzed. "Victor, you might want to sit down," he said. "They just filed a motion, civil injunction, trying to block you from further contact with the estate." I let the silence stretch. "I expected that," I said. "Let them play checkers. We've been playing chess since page 1. He exhaled. "Do you want me to respond publicly or keep it in pre-litigation publicly, but give them a weekend to sweat?" He paused. "You sure?" I glanced back at the screen. Patricia was sipping wine, talking strategy over dessert, her face serene. "I'm sure." After we hung up, I turned back to Emily. She was already uploading the clips to the secure drive, labeling the folder, "Dinner That Never Happened for Me. Move." They thought I wouldn't see. They thought I'd stay quiet. They forgot who raised me and what that taught me to become. When you go public, you lose control of the silence. But sometimes that's exactly the point. Victor's office smelled like paperwork and restraint leather chairs, muffled air conditioning, no windows. I sat across from him, my hands steady for the first time in days. Emily was on the couch, laptop, open eyes, scanning multiple tabs. Every breath in that room carried purpose. Victor cleared his throat. "We'll release only 3 minutes," he said. "Enough to validate your claims, not enough to expose legal liability." Emily added, I've vetted the outlet. Independent, strong whistleblower history, no ties to your family's firm. I gave a nod. Send it. They silenced me in private. I'll make them speak in public. The clip was short, but surgical. Patricia saying Samantha's too unstable for this, then Heather's nod, Kyle's laugh, and that line. She's basically staff at this point. That one did it. That line cut through screens and pride. We didn't wait long. By the time I got back to my apartment, my phone was already blinking. Emily showed me the headline, Prominent Chicago Family Faces Internal Exploitation Allegations Video Surfaces. Heather's law firm issued a terse statement. We are reviewing the situation. Kyle's LinkedIn page disappeared by noon. Patricia had 3 missed calls from board members. Emily intercepted a voicemail where one of them muttered, I told you she'd blow. Victor remained calm as the inquiries piled in. Let them react, he said. You stay quiet. Your power now is your silence. I didn't give interviews. Didn't respond to reporters standing outside my building. Emily handled everything with the poise of a strategist born, not trained. You didn't just get their attention, she said, eyes locked on her screen. You took their mask. The irony was sharp years of being silenced, dismissed, folded out of frame. Now the frame was mine. I chose what they saw, what they feared, what they couldn't ignore. My inbox buzzed with requests, Dateline, NPR, even a podcast called Family Ghosts. I said no, every time. They wanted my pain for their ratings. I wanted something else, consequence. Around midnight, my personal email pinged, one I rarely checked. It was from Patricia. Subject line, let's talk. No lawyers, just us. I stared at it, letting the silence stretch. That offer, after all this? No reply. Not yet. The storm had only just begun, and for once I wasn't under it. I was the one who opened the clouds. I didn't need them to say sorry. I just needed to make them wish they had. The conference room smelled of lemon polish and old tension. The chairs were too soft. The silence too deliberate. Patricia sat at the far end, flanked by Heather and Kyle, neither of whom could quite meet my eyes. Victor laid the final agreement between us like a surgical tray, clean, cold, precise. He cleared his throat. The terms remain unchanged. Financial restitution to Ms. Mitchell in the agreed amount. A formal statement to be issued by the Mitchell family acknowledging mishandling of fiduciary responsibility. Non-disparagement clause, mutual. No admission of guilt required. Is that understood? Patricia didn't speak. She just signed. Heather's signature trembled. Kyle added his last, then leaned over the table with a faint murmur. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I didn't answer. That wasn't what I came for. The whole process took less than 30 minutes. Years of betrayal condensed into legal bullet points and signatures. When it ended, I stood. No nod. No goodbye. Just the soft click of my shoes on the tile as I walked out of the room. They thought they'd never be in with me again. Outside, the light had changed. Dusk had taken over Chicago, folding the skyline into shades of cobalt and quiet. Emily met me on the corner, her scarf pulled high around her neck, eyes scanning my face like she was bracing for the aftershock. We didn't speak. She looked side-eye. No, I said. But I feel that mattered more. I wasn't looking for healing. I was looking for the truth to be acknowledged, if not by them, then by the paper, the statement, the silence they couldn't control anymore. We stood there a while longer. She didn't say anything else, and I didn't need her to. At some point, Emily drifted a few feet away to check her phone, letting me be alone. I watched the horizon, watched the red fade into blue, the sky stretch its last breath of color across the water. No tears, no cinematic music in my head. Just me, still standing. The last thing Patricia ever said to me after college echoed back faintly. Try not to embarrass the family. She should have known. I wasn't the embarrassment. I was the evidence. I whispered my own name into the cold air, not for drama, not for triumph, but because for once, it belonged entirely to me. They took everything for granted: my silence, my absence, even my worth. But the moment I stopped asking to be seen was the moment they were finally exposed. Justice didn't come wrapped in apology or forgiveness. It came in signature statements and a name they could no longer erase. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. If this story struck a chord with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Comment 1 if you felt the injustice too, and 2 if you believe the story still isn't over.